Well, hello again, and thank you so much for joining us here at the Sea Otter exhibit. My name is Anevay. I'm a naturalist here on staff. I'm up on the second floor of the exhibit if you're wondering where my voice is coming from. And again, you're all here at a great time. Shortly, our otter care team will be joining us inside the exhibit to get started with this morning's training and feeding session. So today we'll get an inside look at some of the daily routine care our otters receive. Right on cue, here comes our otter care team. They're going to be using a method called positive reinforcement to feed our otters. Those of you who have pets at home, you might be familiar with this technique. They're going to be asking our otters to do certain behaviors or actions, and if they do the correct behavior, they'll be awarded or positively reinforced with some of their favorite tasty foods. Starting off the training session, we see our otters doing something called stationing, positioning themselves at a certain part of the deck, joined by the trainer they'll be working with. This gives me a chance to go ahead and also introduce who you're seeing on exhibit. On the far right-hand side, we've got Ivy. She's our blondest otter. Next to her, we've got, that is Selka, I believe. Selka is our most chocolatey brown otter. Right in the middle is Ruby. Ruby is our youngest otter at 7 years old. You see her right in the middle, munching on, I believe that's a piece of clam. On the menu today for our girls is shrimp, squid, and clam. And we have one more otter on exhibit. On the far left-hand side, I believe she's swimming around in that pool there. That is Kit. Kit is one of our longest otters on exhibit. Now, the aquarium is home to 5 female southern sea otters, all of who have been deemed non-releasable by the U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife. Now, on exhibit like we see them today, our otters act as ambassadors for their species, showing us what it means to be an otter and inspiring the conservation of their fragile populations. But we'll get into more of that later. Up on the deck there, we can see that Ivy has done something we call decking out, or climbed onto the deck from the water. This gives our trainers a better chance to see her agility outside of the water. Ensuring that our trainers and otters have a trusting bond is important. Because these are wild otters, something like asking Ivy to climb up on the rock like you see there is something we'd call an animal care behavior. These are not things you might see our otters doing in the wild, but help ensure that our otters are comfortable with the care that they're provided. It also gives our trainers a better chance to inspect their fur coats, get a closer look at their face, paws, or tummies. Opportunities that might be harder to do with an otter who doesn't have the same special training our otters do. We see there that, I believe that's Kit, who's just been asked to stand up. Again, that's another example of one of these animal care behaviors. Another type of behavior our otters practice here is something we call enrichment. Enrichment keeps our otters mentally and physically stimulated. So for Ivy there, who's swimming around in our otter spa pool, or who's just been asked again to climb up on the rock, that's also an example of enrichment. Moving around and interacting with her exhibit in new and challenging ways keeps her mentally and physically engaged, making sure that her day-to-day life stays interesting. So for our 2 otters there who were just asked to move from the deck back into the water, again, that's another example of that enrichment behaviors. Enrichment also can encourage natural behaviors, as I mentioned before. So for our otters, this is something like diving down, foraging for their food, or grooming their fur. Now, an otter has to eat a lot and groom their fur to maintain their warmth. Sea otters are marine mammals, but unlike other marine mammals like seals, sea lions, or whales, who've got a thick layer of fat called blubber to keep warm, our otters rely on their high metabolism. That means they are eating a lot. You might see that our otters have 3 scheduled feedings a day, and that's not the only time a day they eat. Sea otters actually can eat up to 25% of their body weight in one day. Now, to put that into human perspective, that's about the same as an adult eating 20 large pizzas in one day. I love pizza as much as the next person, but I'm not sure I'm up for that sea otter eating challenge. Now, when it comes to maintaining that warmth and trapping that body heat in, our otters rely on their thick, dense fur coat to trap their body heat. So you might see them rolling around after getting a snack and looking like they're giving themselves a nice little face scratch or full body rub. And that's an example of them grooming their fur. maintaining a healthy coat helps keep them waterproof and warm in their cold water habitats. Now, this dense fur coat can actually grow up to 1 million hairs per square inch. It's the densest fur of any animal. Again, in human perspective, an average adult has about 100,000 hairs on their head. So in just a square inch of this otter's fur coat, you can fit about 10 times the amount of hair you have on top of your head. Now, this dense fur coat was actually the reason this population is threatened today. During the fur trade, their dense fur coat was so coveted, they were hunted down to just 50 individuals. Thankfully, they were found not too far off the coast of Lover's Point, pretty close to here. And thanks to local conservation and protection efforts, folks just like you and I who find these otters utterly adorable and important to protect, the population has slowly recovered to nearly 3,000 individuals today. As I mentioned earlier, our otters on exhibit have an important job as ambassadors for their species. While they're deemed non-releasable, here on exhibit, they show us all what it means to be an otter and also inspire the conservation of this adorable, fragile species. But off exhibit, they have another very important job. At the aquarium, we have a one-of-a-kind sea otter surrogacy program. Our otters on exhibit, the ladies you see right here in front of you, can be paired up with otter pups, wild pups who've been rescued and brought to our care. They'll be paired up and brought behind the scenes where they can teach them all of those natural skills that you see them practicing here on exhibit. They'll teach those otters all the natural skills they need to survive in the wild, and then those pups can be released. So that's how our otters have a direct connection and contribution to their wild counterparts and the recovery of their threatened species. If you'd like to learn more about that sea otter surrogacy program, I invite you to check out our auditorium program, Luna, a sea otter story. It follows an adorable pup named Luna and her adventure through that program. With that being said, though, folks, it does look like our training team has finished up the feeding for this morning. Hope you all enjoyed, and if you're going to be continuing on your adventure for today, hope you all had an utterly fantastic day here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium.